Earlier this month, Wall Street Journal published one interesting article titled "CRISPR's Next Frontier Treating Common Conditions." Main focus of this article is on potential application of CRISPR to cure cardiovascular diseases by lowering cholesterol levels. Now, Beam Therapeutics, in collaboration with Verve Therapeutics, published a new research article on drug candidate Verve 101 that is able to decrease cholesterol level in monkeys by 60% using base editor technology. In today's video, I will explain why this research article is very important for CRISPR field. Hello, my name is Marat, I'm a PhD student in medicinal chemistry, and on this channel we're talking about biotech stocks. And if this sounds interesting to you, you're welcome to subscribe. And before we start, I just want to remind you that I'm not a financial advisor, and what I'm saying here is just my opinion, and I'm sharing it with you as I would share it with my friends. First of all, shout out to my subscribers who pointed out this collaboration between Verve Therapeutics and Beam Therapeutics, as I missed it initially in my video where I compare all major CRISPR companies. And before we start talking about the article itself, I want to give you a little bit of a background that should help you to understand why I believe that this news is so big. This chart gives us information about annual number of deaths by cause, and as you can see that leading cause of death is cardiovascular diseases, and it's almost twice as many deaths related to cardiovascular diseases as all cancers combined. And we all know about cancer and how deadly that is, but actually cardiovascular diseases twice as deadly. We hear a lot of coverage about cancer in the media, but when we look at this chart, it's obvious that cardiovascular disease causes twice as many deaths, and I believe media should pay more attention to this problem, because many of these deaths could be avoided by adjusting the lifestyle or adjusting the diet. The good news is that we already have multiple drugs on the market that are available for this health problem. And actually, if we look into the most prescribed medicine in 2018 in USA, it's Lipitor or atorvastatin, and this drug aimed at lowering cholesterol levels. However, Lipitor and similar drugs have serious side effects, and the most nasty one, increased chance of developing diabetes, and the last thing you want to create new disease on the expense of curing the old one. Also, some patients, they just don't respond to a traditional medicine, and for these patients, new drugs based on antibodies were developed. But to take antibodies, you have to inject it, and it's very inconvenient for people as it has to happen regular. And also Lipitor, you have to take it on daily basis. So if you forgot to take this drug, you're in danger, because your cholesterol level will be not controlled and you may end up having a stroke. So we clearly need better solution for this health problem, since in spite of all the available medicines, it's still leading cause of death, as you've seen on the graph. And this is where Beam Therapeutics and Verve Therapeutics enter the stage with a new research article on this problem. Using Beam Therapeutics base editing technology, authors of this paper were able to disrupt PCSK9 gene in liver of monkeys, and this resulted in 60% decrease of cholesterol levels. And what's the most important about this decrease of cholesterol levels? That it remained consistent within 8 months of observation after initial injection. So, and this, as any other CRISPR treatment, suggests that it will be one-off treatment. You make a single injection and then it lasts till the rest of your life. And I really like the target PCSK9, since this gene is responsible for producing protein that earlier was connected to the levels of cholesterol. And actually few antibody drugs were created to target this protein, and they were actually effective and they received approval by FDA. So which means that this target is really valid and it's working. So, and instead of targeting and blocking this protein, you can basically just edit it out, this gene, and no proteins will be produced at all. At this point you may say, hang on, if we're going to disrupt this gene, no protein will be produced at all, and this may cause some other problems that we haven't seen before. But here is the good news. This mutation is actually naturally occurring in 2 to 3% of human population. So, and it means that we have already enough data to see if it affects health or not. And in this article, they're going through different variations in this gene, and some of them basically switching off this gene completely. And people seems to have no adverse effects from this happening. And it's really good sign for this medicine, because if this naturally occurring mutation doesn't cause any harm, it can act as a proof that this is valid target. And here is the result of this paper, that it says out of 3,363 black subjects examined, 2.6 had this mutation in PCSK9. And on average, this population of people with this mutation had 28% reduction in LDL cholesterol. And they had 88% reduction in the risk to develop coronary heart disease. And it's a lot. And once again, I just want to underline that this is result from 28% reduction of LDL cholesterol, while paper from Beam Therapeutics and Verve Therapeutics saying that they reduce cholesterol level by 60% in monkey. So the result of reduction of coronary disease could be even higher compared to this 88%, which is already huge. And then if you look at the white subjects in this study, among them 3.2% had this variation in PCSK9, and it resulted in 15% reduction of cholesterol level and 47% reduction of developing coronary heart disease. For me, this data is huge, because you can see that in spite of lowering cholesterol level just 28% or 15% compared to 60% that was shown by Verve and Beam Therapeutics, you can see that risk to develop coronary heart disease is way lower. And since this mutation occurring in 2 or 3% of population, and they seems to have no health issue connected to this, we can say that it's most likely going to be safe medicine. Now, as we discussed target for this drug candidate, let's briefly talk about mechanism of delivery for this drug. And I find it interesting because they're using lipid nanoparticles, and it's same mechanism as Pfizer using for their vaccine. The authors of this paper, they packed 2 different RNAs inside this lipid nanoparticle, and one of these RNAs act as a blueprint and will be used in the cell to create CRISPR-Cas9 protein that actually will be doing base editing. And the second RNA is guide RNA that will lead path for this CRISPR-Cas9 where exactly to make this base editing change. And I find it fascinating that they're using RNA instead of protein, and they relying on the cell machinery to create this protein inside the cell. And I believe it's connected to the problem that it's harder to create protein compared to create RNA, but I might be wrong. If you know more about this stuff, you can correct me in the comments. And these lipid nanoparticles, they worked really well as a delivery vehicle, since almost all the editing was happening inside the target, inside the liver cells. Overall, 0.5 off-site mutation were identified in this study, and since after 8 months of observation no adverse effects were detected, I believe that this level of off-site mutation, it seems to be tolerated well, but definitely we need more time to make a conclusion. And talking about more time, there is another company, Precision Biosciences, that used similar to a CRISPR technique called meganucleases to edit out the same gene PCSK9 and achieved similar reduction of cholesterol level in non-human primates, so similar to this article by Verve and Beam, and they were able to observe this reduction for at least 3.5 years until this point, without observing any serious side effects in these monkeys. And this study is similar, but apparently meganucleases are way less accurate, and they require double-stranded break as well, instead of base editing that doesn't require break of DNA. If you want to learn more about specific details and experiments done in this research article, you can check video in the description, and Tommy from CRISPR Talk did a great job of describing this. In conclusion, I want to say that this is early days for this drug candidate, since this study was done on monkeys, and right now Verve, according to their website, is in IND enabling stage for this drug candidate, which means that they're planning to start clinical trials sometime soon, probably at the end of this year or maybe next year. And then I believe they will need at least 5 years to push it through the clinical trials, or maybe even more, before this drug can reach the market. And this is, of course, if everything is great along the way with clinical trials. And of course, this drug initially will be prescribed only for severe cases that are not treated with existing drugs, because still the risk is relatively high, and this is new technology and people naturally afraid of this. But I believe that eventually, if this results on initial clinical trials and then in early patients who actually accept it on the commercial basis will be good, then base for patients will be expanded, and at some point in the future, at least in my opinion, I believe that this can be used as a preventive medicine. As I showed in the beginning, that heart problems are very common and a lot of people dying from this, and it's actually leading cause of death right now. And I believe if long-term observation after, let's say, 15 or 20 years after first human being injected with this drug will show that it's safe and no adverse effect will be observed, I believe I would rather take this injection as a precaution rather than wait for development of heart disease. And I have to mention that CRISPR has this advantage of one and done procedure, that you don't have to take pills every day, and sometimes you have to take pills even several times a day. And with CRISPR medicines, it's just single injection and you're good to go till the rest of your days. I can say that news like this make me more optimistic about the future of humanity, and I'm really looking forward to see what kind of new development will be happening with Beam Therapeutics, and it brings me confidence to hold shares of Beam Therapeutics. And also, I will be looking out for IPO of Verve Therapeutics, because I believe when they will enter clinical trials and show some promising data in clinical trials, most likely they will be going into a public company. Let me know what you think about this type of news, and would you be willing to take CRISPR drugs as a preventative medicine? I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.